Thank you, Carl. I'm not going to spend too much time, draining this slide because a lot's on it, but suffice to say that we've been in the business of utilizing these approaches for about the last 4 years. We have built now 3 products that are based on the Salesforce different infrastructure, whether it's Sales Cloud, etc. And we're a certified ISV partner. The first solution that we built was basically predictive platform. The use cases that we're solving on our side is very much sales centric in terms of predicting sales forecasts more accurately and prioritizing sales opportunities scientifically, and obviously really trying to increase I'd call it the conversion rate of the funnel. We've extended into bringing in other data sets as well, and configuring things very, very rapidly, so things get up and running in literally days, not months. I think that's an important point. On the predictive analytics side, much to the discussion that we just had with Carl, the quality of the workflows, which is the business process, is critical to really drive really, really solid predictive analytics. And then we've overlaid the prescriptive side, which are the reasons for the wins and the losses before they actually happen, and giving sales professionals an opportunity to alter some of the dynamics that they have control on or not. The third product is our little baby. It's fairly new. The other ones are definitely out of the toddler stage. This is still a toddler. But what it does is it connects to over 11,000 external B2B databases and looks at the signals that are going on outside the CRM environment, and then identifies where those signals that correlate to your sales cycles, where there's interest in your solutions, intent to purchase, and we pull that back right to the sales professionals. So that can really increase the lead capacity. It can drive more micro-segmentation. Now, the key thing that we've learned along the way, and I'm going to go through a case study, is that we've started to also recognize that companies are requesting more insights on predictive churn, and that's mainly our topic today. So we haven't built a product that basically is, kind of on demand, put the data in, figure it all out, integrate with the right, kind of service repositories. But what we have learned is that we can take very large global data sets and immediately, if there's sufficient volume, really drive insights that can then be structured into the next stages of that, ongoing fulfillment, exchangeable, dynamic, solution set. So I'm going to share with you a case study of a global manufacturing imaging organization that we're still working on, but they have over 10,000 employees. They've got a global footprint and a distribution reach of, using the top global retailers worldwide. What we've learned along in our journey is that you really need to step back and be really clear about, get out of the language and say, going back to what is the problem that you're really trying to solve. And so we basically just created this framework. We thought we'd share it with you. It's not exactly rocket scientist, but if you don't go through all these phases, you will not be successful, is sort of our positioning in really, really ensuring that the organization internalizes how to execute these approaches. So, understanding the question, stepping back and making sure that you've got really good data sources that are representative of the problem set that you want to solve. Carl, I know you would agree, we could rattle off many different AI data science methods that you could apply. So you can start experimenting, but then you often find that other methods actually can enhance the predictive accuracy. But if you don't have the foundation initially, it doesn't matter how many additional methods you keep, augmenting or adding. And many companies are stuck in that spiral where the business side doesn't really understand the data sciences language side, and that, there's just, we just use the word too much theoretical or academic approaches. The getting the actual model set is really important, where it can sustain having that ongoing conversation or preliminary findings. You're constantly, we've learned that with machine learning, you can keep refining, the model can keep replenishing itself. It's just like continuing gas that's flowing into the tank, and it keeps, sometimes it sputters a bit, and sometimes you need to, dive in and appreciate what's going on. I would never suggest that you leave it totally alone. I'm not a total believer yet on the black box. I know, Carl, maybe that's something we could talk again, because I find in very large, global, complex organizations, they really need to understand their business processes, and we're really there to make sure that we demonstrate we understand their business processes and that they see value and try and transfer that knowledge. And the most important point, obviously, is the success sustainability. So those were the kind of the life cycle that we went through in terms of, being a data sciences solution provider to this client. The terms of the question that we were asked to solve, essentially, is that they gave us over 3,000 client observations that we had collected. The actual observations in the data set, and it was very, very much coming from the service technician side. And we did work with them in terms of the specific data science models, and I'm not going to, like I said, drain all this language, but we really did apply 3 to 4 different methods, and there's still conversations around other things we might be able to see. But so defining the question was really how could we predict customer churn risks more accurately, and they really wanted to understand what were the reasons or the observations under the predictive churn, and what could they do as an organization to continue to have that insight. Now the next step that we did essentially is we drilled down very, very hard in terms of what were the areas that were most relevant to the churn, and we narrowed it down to 42 significant predictive churn variables, and then we further drilled it down into 10 patterns that were the major churn triggers. In their world, they are using something called the Net Promoter Score, and obviously many companies use that. What was interesting for us is companies spend a lot of money on that, and that didn't necessarily correlate to the highest the variables for predictive churn. So, I think with these sciences, I think it also challenges some of the assumptions that we have on many investments that we're making in terms of our organization. But the net of it, bottom line, is we were able to get to a level of 90% predictive churn accuracy and identify 20 companies that this client had at churn risk. And we've estimated now that there's over 100 million potentially churn risk. So getting back to the conversation of our session today, companies that can mitigate those risks with growth in the subscription-based businesses, seeing the foresight, having those actionable insights, there's only goodness that can transpire. And the data volume is just far too high to be able to do as humans. We really do need to, recognize that there's just too much that's out there. But what you need to do is find really good trusted brands and trusted people that really know what they're doing. I'm now going to turn it back to Matt, who's going to continue on and share some of the key insights from Zora as we start to summarize and before we open up to Q&A. Matt?
Yeah, thank you. I think summarizing this from our Zora point of view, we've got a couple bullets here, but just not to kind of read these verbatim to the audience. I think the first piece for us is that data is clearly abundant. It's powerful. Organizations are, being, or if not becoming, data driven, but you need to be able to take the next step. And I think that was a point both Carl and you yourself, Cindy, raised really well on some of the early examples and slides, is that if individuals within an organization aren't incented or motivated to take action, or if there's a question on how do I take action, having data, having predictive models, it's really not going to get you the outcome that you want, which is directly impacting some of your business metrics like churn and retention and growth. That's why we focus a lot on score decomposition. That's why we focus on things like engagement score, to Carl's point, making a lot of the more, call it data science metrics around probability more user-friendly. So customers and individuals that are working with the data can clearly understand what they need to do next. And it's tied to top-level business objectives, so they're incented to do so. So that becomes really important. I think the second thing is, and this was one of the things that was eye-opening to myself after starting to work with Carl here at Zora, is that it's all about the metrics and not the algorithm for the predictive score. There's a lot of talk in the marketplace with AI models and predictive models. At Zora, we're really focused. We really focus on churn. We think that we're in a position to have the data to do that really well. to make that interpretable. But once again, not just the algorithm, but we have the right metrics and the ability in the product to actually define the right metrics, which, as Carl mentioned, are the features that allow us to drive a really compelling score that's not only trustworthy, but can be acted upon. The third thing for us is that we work with companies that are either subscription companies at heart or moving that direction. I mentioned some of those examples at the beginning. Most folks that we talk to don't expect to have companies like Caterpillar or General Electric as subscription companies, but they are, and they're shifting that direction. And what we see is that not only are these companies moving towards a subscription-based business model, but we see every single one of these companies is looking to leverage data to better understand their subscribers. And that begins with having clean data that they can wrap around a true identity of who their customer is, blend in how the customer uses their service, and then ultimately derive a predictive score, which is more of an advanced use case, but it's incredibly important in their journey of not only operating a subscription business model, but doing the best that they can to reduce churn and provide really great customer experiences. So that was a little bit of our summary from Zuora. Cindy, I know that you probably want to open it for Q&A, so back to you.